Good evening, it's the Oscar expert here with Brother Bro. We just got back from the New York Film Festival screening of The Irishman. Highly anticipated movie. 3.5 hour long Martin Scorsese mob epic with De Niro, Pacino, and Joe Pesci. This movie's about this guy who becomes a hitman. He's working very closely with people in politics and just, it's mob stuff. Like, we've seen Scorsese do his mob thing before. He's done it with Goodfellas. This one is more in like the last half of your life. These characters are like accumulating that power, but it's more like somber and serious. It's got its funny moments. It doesn't have that energy as much as like the young person entering the mob, as Goodfellas did. But that's not to say that the movie is as sparse as Silence. It's definitely trying to go for that fast pace, cutaways, flashbacks, voiceover narration that you'd expect. There's a lot of good humor in there. I think this actually goes both ways. So, on one hand, I think Scorsese's like the man to pick up on their behaviors of these mob people, like how they treat each other, like their mannerisms and everything. So he really captures that. But at the same time, a lot of this movie feels like a layup for him. And to be honest with you, I was wondering in the beginning, in the middle, more towards the middle, that why is he taking on this project where it feels like he's done it before in a more exciting way? Where is this movie gonna take me? Like, what is the point of this story? Because a lot of it's sort of didactic, but it has to be because the story is very complicated. It's, he killed this person and that person killed this person connected to this person. And after a while, if you're not, invested in this story for the story's sake, then it can become a little bit tedious, I will say. There's sort of a purposeful, lack of emotion to this character. Yeah. But at the same time, it also leaves you wondering, where is this movie going? Like, what is this character dealing with? Yeah. All this mob stuff is fine, but it's also such a long movie, and it dedicates, I would say, maybe the first 3/4 to what at times becomes a little bit of a blur because it's all kind of the same in tone. If you look at Wolf of Wall Street and Departed and Goodfellas, Casino, those movies are more exciting in this portion of the movie where you're going through all this plot stuff. You get more of a sense of the protagonist's excitement. It's something you were saying before. His inner journey is very unclear, and I think that's deliberate until the ending. Of course, we'll get to that later, but who the character is, what he wants, why he's doing it is not clearly defined. It's not that strong of a character to attach to. The inner journey, it felt like it was a little bit missing. The one point of the movie where the heart is, it has to do with his family. There's a few scenes towards the beginning that seem to hint that it's going to be about this. This is where the real conflict is. And the movie brings it back to that, but it takes so long for the movie to get out of its plot rut where it's just going through the motions. However, in the end of the movie, you get a lot of that emotion, what really went on with this character during this whole time. It's very self-reflexive of what came beforehand, and in a lot of ways, when you look at Scorsese's films, it's like Scorsese reflecting on his own movies are bringing a new perspective to that mob life. That's where this movie ends up standing out. That is the masterful part of this movie, is the ending. That's what it brings to the table. And it changes a lot of the way that you perceive the rest of the movie. And you can say, well, I actually see where that was going with that. I understand why this was like that. It doesn't entirely make it up because, again, this is a 3.5 hour movie. I could have done with 1 hour of that, and then you get the ending. Yeah, it felt like the movie was too beholden to telling this long story. Because in the end, Scorsese delivers the movie that I wanted to see all along and the movie that was really in there. He peels back the layers of the onion, to reference Shrek. And he does so in a phenomenal way. The way the ending brings all of it to the surface. It becomes very deep in the ending all of a sudden, where you can't necessarily see that while you're going through it, but I feel like it would make it a little bit richer of an experience to watch it through a second time, because you do look back at certain things and say, yeah, they were aware of this, as the movie was plotting along. It does come through. You can have faith. Just know that you are still in the hands of somebody who is trying to make a statement and who does make it in the end. But I agree. You can't quite make up for the fact that it did lose me a little bit towards the middle. It's unfortunate, because I wanted to say that every minute of this movie was earned, and I can't say that.
Yeah.
What is surprising about the movie is how much humor there is.
It's a way to bring the humanity back to the characters, you know?
Yeah.
I think that was what it really did.
And it's not what you'd expect from that first trailer, which is ultra serious.
Yeah. Now, talk about the performances here, Cole.
Oh, right.
We have to get into that. How good is De Niro, Cole? I mean, he brings exactly what you'd expect to the movie. He's so natural and right for this role. You know, he's not doing something crazy out of his range. But, you know, he's already proven himself so much. I mean, how much else can he do? You have Pesci, who I think is, like, in the same way as De Niro. He brings, like, that authenticity to the role.
Yeah.
But I think De Niro, especially towards the last half of this film, like, really shows off his acting chops. These are, like, the right choices for these you know, sort of brutish characters. They're people that you just know, like, in everyday life. So these characters definitely have that humanity to them. I would say Pacino is a standout, where he's actually more scene stealing. Every scene he's in, you're like, shit. He's so fucking good. He is a absolute lock for Best Supporting Actor this year.
For sure. He's responsible for the scenes that you want to rewatch the most.
Most of them involve argumentation or, like, puffing out your chest. You know, you're in a battle of dominance with people. The peacocking in this movie is great.
The movie definitely comments on the pettiness of these people who will get in a feud about the smallest thing, or someone requesting an apology to the point where they're going to just contemplate, like, killing them over it.
We can see that they're actually these very emotional, fragile men. So there are, like, touch points like that in the movie where I did feel more connected to the story.
As far as, like, De Niro being a Best Actor contender, I still think he's, like, an iffy position, because a lot of times what he's doing here is similar to what he's done in the past. The third act of this movie is definitely his time to shine, whereas the middle of the movie is kind of Pacino's.
He's a strong Best Actor contender, though. I mean, there's no way around it.
It's also a strong Best Actor field, though.
Exactly. It's a strong field.
But Al Pacino is on another tier than Joe Pesci. So I think that Al Pacino's, like, easily in there, and Joe Pesci I don't see getting nominated. He definitely is great in a lot of the movie. He doesn't necessarily have, like, those big moments.
It's not impossible that he could get nominated, because even though it's like, okay, Emma Stone and Rachel Weisz in Farewell.
No, it's like it's like 3 billboards.
Yeah, it's like 3 billboards. Like Woody Harrelson, Sam Rockwell.
I'm sure everyone's very curious. What are the visual effects like?
I think we're in the early phases of this, but it still works to tell the story.
What do you mean early phases, though?
I think we're in the, like,
pretty good.
No, yeah, but it's obvious that it's, like, it's not totally there. It's not perfect.
Sometimes it is,
and
like,
for
totally
Faces,
there,
we kind of need it to be perfect. Overall, like, it definitely did its job. I mean, you're not taken out of the movie by it.
For the most part,
and it's still able to tell its story and have the, you know, emotion be there.
Yeah, and they might even award it with a win, honestly. I mean, I know that it's not entirely seamless, but I was not dissatisfied with it, and it didn't take me out of the movie, and I suspect that most people will be able to pretty much not notice. Like, if you're paying attention, you might notice sometimes.
You do know.
Cinematography, like, there's some great lighting and everything, and there's some good camera work, but it doesn't feel like it's as purposeful.
Yeah, it's not like, okay, Goodfellas is like, you think of the camera work and you think of that movie. The Irishman, more like TV, where it's more invisible camera work. Yes, there's some Scorsese flourishes where they do, like, dolly shots and everything, and there's a lot of that. But overall, I wouldn't say it's, like, Oscar-worthy cinematography. And I don't think it's one of Scorsese's best-looking movies.
Production design,
possible, though.
I don't think so, though, because I think a lot of it is, like, familiar locations, and usually the production design awards go to things that are more extravagant.
Yeah, sure, but it could like, squeeze a nomination in there, I think.
And also, let's note that Wall Street, Departed, Casino, Goodfellas, none of them were nominated for cinematography or production design. Editing, I think, will happen for the movie. I think that it's a strong enough contender in picture. There's a ton of flashbacks, cutaways, all that stuff. It's fast. It carries you through. The movie is not slow-paced, even though it's 3.5 hours, and you could call that an achievement. I would prefer to call it tedious rather than slow or boring, because it definitely does keep up the energy. The reviews for this movie so far have been pretty fantastic. I think we like it less than the consensus, which people are just throwing the masterpiece word all around. Oh, Martin Scorsese has made another masterpiece. He's is a master of his craft, and
it's easy to reflect on the movie and see what's like great about it and say, okay, this is like late career Scorsese at his best. I am not going to disagree with that. We got to celebrate what the movie did in fact achieve in the end. And so it's easy to walk away with this movie. Like the ending, I was like, oh my God, amazing, amazing. But I don't think you're going to be looking back at this movie, like just watching the scenes over and being like, oh my God, great scene after great scene. Like Wolf of Wall Street has even proved to be a movie where you can do that. Goodfellas, easily a movie where you can do that. I don't think this will be that kind of movie. It'll be considered a very mature movie, perhaps more like Silence, his last movie, which I thought was very, very good.
I would say I like Silence better. And fantastic final shot in this movie. I would compare it to Wolf of Wall Street. That final shot just resonates throughout the movie.
Yeah, it definitely got me.
You get the triangle of De Niro, Pesci, and Pacino, and anytime any of them are interacting with each other, it's just great. It's just great to watch. It's magnetic. But for me, like, it was tedious at parts, or just slightly duller than it should be.
Yeah.
As for my rating, I would go with an 8 out of 10. I think that the ending redeems a lot about the movie.
Yeah, we feel the same way about this movie, so I'm also going to go with an 8 out of 10. The middle of the movie was like a 7 out of 10 for me. The ending was like 10 out of 10, but it was just the very end that got me. So I have to just kind of keep it somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I agree with those numbers and your placement of
so
where they
great
are.
Payoff. If I watch this movie again, knowing how it ended, knowing where like the core of the movie is, I might like it better. I will say that. I don't know. I've only seen it once.
Just for the sheer hype behind this movie, like, it's going to get picture and director.
I don't think it will win Best Picture because there's a lot of people I feel like who could just turn it off at the 2-hour mark. Critics love it. They would nominate it for all the awards. But voters are a different breed. I don't know how people will feel about The Irishman. We'll have to see. You know, that cinema score, that IMDb score. We'll have to see what happens.
But maybe people will just be like, I'm just like eating Scorsese. And it's like, I don't care like what, like it's Scorsese right here.
Yeah, maybe
it's
people
all I
love
need.
it. Like my dad would like this movie. My mom would not like this movie.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. We have 2 more films coming up from New York Film Festival that we are going to review. Portrait of a Lady on Fire tomorrow and Marriage Story next week. So stay tuned for that. Do you think it's problematic that De Niro is playing a Irish person when he is Italian? And will you take to Twitter to voice your concerns and bring justice to this movie?